Joining us right now, a first-timer, a guy that knows MLS inside out, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. He covers it and dissects it, all sorts. Matthew Doyle. Matthew, welcome, my friend.
Yeah, it's good to be on the show. How you doing?
I'm very good. Really, thank you for coming on and making time out of your busy schedule. Matthew, let's start with the Red Bulls and the Montreal Impact. I really enjoyed that game before the main meal up here in Toronto, TFC, and New York City FC. Let's talk about it. I thought it was a real battle in the midfield there. I thought that Oyongo had an unbelievable game for the Impact, and Siman. What a goal by Mancuso. And to me, unbelievable miss by Bradley Wright Phillips. What did you see? What did you like? What did you not like?
Well, I think you kind of summed it up there. It was kind of a tale of two forwards. Mancuso got one good chance. Well, I mean, I wouldn't even necessarily call that a good chance. It was about a half chance, and he just took it world-class finish like that. And Bradley Wright Phillips had 2 or 3 looks and wasn't able to get it done. And you know, that's the way it is in these big games. You know, you have one guy who steps up and comes through in the moment, and then you have another guy who can't quite do it. And it's not necessarily always about pedigree or what they did in the regular season. It's just about being locked in on the day. And I thought that was the case. And full credit to the Impact. They had a very pragmatic approach, and they executed it. And I think I'm already looking forward to Leg 2. I'll say that for sure.
Let's talk about Felipe for the Red Bulls. I thought he was man of the match for them. He had an outstanding game, hit a crossbar, I believe, late in the second half, if I recall. Really was controlling that midfield when he was on the ball. I think he was spraying it all over. And to me, he looked dangerous. One guy that did not look dangerous, slow, he looked out of position. He wouldn't take a shot when he was in on close a few times, was Mike Grella. Your thoughts on those two?
Well, I think Grella's struggled a little bit, and I think maybe his lack of foot speed was something that Montreal kind of game planned for. They knew he wasn't going to be able to beat them for pace into space, so they were able to pull Hassoun Kamara up and have him basically sit on Grella for the whole game, and that's the way to defend him. As for Felipe, look, he did really well tracking. He always does. I mean, he covers so much ground, and his passing was good. I think that his passing needed to be great. I think that with Montreal, Montreal's game plan was to stop Sacha Kljestan, period. And they had 3 guys around him at all times, and so they sold out completely to do that. And that should have left enough room for Felipe to be a game breaker from open play. And as good as he was, he wasn't that. And I think that's part of the issue that the Red Bulls have had really all year. When Kljestan's out or when teams are keying on him, it is open to question a little bit who's going to step up and be the guy who makes the difference-making play.
Matthew, you talked about the problems that the Red Bulls have, and I thought one guy that had a pretty decent game, he kept Piatti in check for the most part, was Chris Duval. Here's a guy that I thought did the job as best he could, keeping Piatti in place. And to me, the guy that doesn't get enough credit on this Montreal squad. I've seen this guy up close, and I think the last 10 games, he has really turned around for himself and club. That's Marco Donadel. This guy has thread a wonderful pass, as we saw to Mancuso. But not only that game against DC United, and throughout the season, this guy has been a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I mean, he has a pedigree, right? And I think the question last year and through the first half of this year was twofold. It was, could he stay healthy enough to be on the field and do the job? And the second one was discipline. You know, he's a yellow card waiting to happen or a bad foul waiting to happen pretty much every time down the field. And it took him a while to adjust. But over the last couple of months, he's definitely been, he's showing his quality. And I think part of the credit for that has to go to Mauro Biello for, I think, simplifying the midfield and making his... Look, he's not a box-to-box midfielder at this point in his career. He can really only hold and pick his passes and play that sort of game. So I think asking him to do that and then putting guys who, like Bernadello and Bernier in front of him, who are destroyers, who will cover a little bit more ground and do a little bit of hard work, I think it's actually been a good blending of those parts by Mauro Biello.
Matthew, just before we turn on to the page of TFC New York City FC, as we close it out this first game in Montreal, I look at that second game and I'm looking at the benches of both sides, and I think they're pretty weak, to be brutally honest and blunt about it. I think they need to concentrate and get what they can get from their starting lineups, because I look at the Red Bulls. You brought on a Sal Zizou. God bless him. He didn't offer very much. I mean, Montreal had Callum Malice, who to me is not the type of guy you really should rely upon in crucial minutes, but they brought him in. So to me, who would you give the edge in regards to guys on the bench to really supplying a need late in the game?
Well, I think we saw it with Gonzalo Verón. You know, he came in and he set up that shot that Bradley Wright Phillips missed. Like that was exactly what the Red Bulls needed. They need someone on the wing who could beat a guy 1 versus 1 and also have the speed to threaten in behind. And Verón brought that. And they're going to have Daniel Breuer back on Sunday as well. And of course, you remember what happened in the regular season. He scored the game winner against Montreal on that header. So they have a couple of guys. Obviously, Omar Damari was not the right call, given that he got that red card. But I definitely think the Red Bulls have enough firepower off the bench to change a game. Jesse Marsch can be a little slow to use those subs, so I think he needs to consider that. But that's, on balance, I definitely give spots 12 through 18 to the Red Bulls. That said, if Didier Drogba's healthy and Biello could bring him in for the final 15 minutes of the match, that is a weapon that few teams in MLS have, and I don't care that he hasn't played in a month and a half. He's still Didier Drogba for at least 10 minutes at a time.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Let's turn the page to TFC New York City FC. Look, I believe, to me, Patrick Vieira should get a few votes for Coach of the Year. I love what he's done. But last night I get to the press box, Matthew, and I look at the starting lineup, and I thought to myself, there has to be an injury to Josh Saunders. There's no way that this guy is not starting. I was shaking my head. Forget about looking at, Lampard and McNamara. I could understand those a little bit, and we found out about Pirlo and the problems that he had. But Josh Saunders, to me, it was a mystery. You?
I mean, he made that switch on decision day. This is the second game in a row that Johansson has started, which is what a time to make a goalkeeper switch. Look, it does kind of reek of a young coach outsmarting himself, because I agree with you on principle that Vieira was really impressive this year, maybe even worthy of a couple of the Coach of the Year votes. But this is the mistake that young coaches often make in big games. They forget what their team is all about. They forget who brought them there, and they try to outsmart the game. Oscar Pereira, who I think is a fantastic coach, did the same exact thing in 2013 in his first trip to the playoffs. So it's not unprecedented. In fact, I would even go so far as to say it's a little bit predictable, and he'll have his work cut out for him in the second leg, because frankly, I don't think they're shutting Toronto out. And if that's the case, that means NYCFC have to get 4 goals. So it could end up being a pretty wild Sunday afternoon at Yankee Stadium.
And I think it will be. Before we turn and look at that TFC squad and what worked well for them, let's stick on this New York City FC squad. And to me, Mendoza and also Harrison, the youngster, really proved a lot of problems for that TFC defense of Moore, Beitashour, Hagelin, and that midfield. I thought their speed was tremendous working for New York City FC. Where I thought that they struggled was Mikey Lopez. I thought he did not have a good game at all. And then we saw with David Villa his antics, and whether now he gets suspended or not, I doubt it. But I thought they relied on him too much, which they've done all season, and it caught up to him. Your thoughts?
I actually disagree a little bit with your opening there, because as fast and clever and impressive 1v1 as guys like Harrison and Mendoza are, they didn't bring anything in terms of creativity or combination play. I thought they were pretty tepid and pretty kind of myopic with their vision. They weren't able to bring anybody else into the game, and that's where That's where NYCFC lost this one, in large part anyway. Look, Pirlo was out. That hurts. But that doesn't mean you go away from what you were. That doesn't mean you stop trying to be a creative team that values the ball and values passing above all else. And that's what NYCFC were throughout the year. So to compound the absence of Pirlo by sitting Tommy McNamara as well, who is, I think, probably the second most creative player, of course David Villa was going to end up out on an island by himself for basically the duration of his time on the field. Again, it was just a really, really bad job by Vieira. He got overawed by the moment, and Greg Vanny took him to the cleaners. And I think that Toronto fans should applaud their coach for the work that he did in this one.
I'm glad you said that. God bless you for saying that, Matthew. I've taken heat ever since the day that Greg Vanny has taken over as head coach. How many tweets, how many emails and text messages, how many people in the local youth clubs and academies come up to me and say, Anthony, give your head a shake. Greg Vanny is not a guy that can lead us to the promised land and win a championship. Well, guess what? A lot of these people now early on in the playoffs are eating their words. He's learned from his mistakes against the Montreal Impact, and last night he learned once again. To me, Matthew, the second most important signing in TFC history has been Michael Bradley. To me, he stirs the drink. He brings it each and every time. He did last night. Unbelievable atmosphere here. As a Torontonian, born and raised here, Matthew, I've never, ever, ever heard a crowd like this, going back to only pretty close to the LA Galaxy TFC in Champions League at Rogers Center with 50,000. Your thoughts?
I mean, I wish I had been there, because the atmosphere looked spectacular on TV, and it would have, I mean, look, I go back 20 years with MLS. I remember when there were 4,000 people in stands for games like this. So to see 29,000 or 30,000, whatever it was, and to have it be that loud, it does my heart well. And Michael Bradley goes back that far with MLS as well. And when he came back and signed with Toronto, he knew what it was about. He knew that part of his job wasn't just to be there tracking the runs out of midfield to guys like Frank Lampard or, David Villa, or hitting these beautiful diagonal switches. Part of his job is building the franchise. Part of his job is being the guy that not only the team, but the fans and the culture can kind of rally around. And I think he wanted that challenge. And I think, on Sunday evening, he stepped up to that challenge. I thought it was, defensively, I thought it was his best game in a Toronto shirt. And that's what these guys live for. It was fun to watch, and Leg 2 will be a lot of fun to watch as well.
Lastly, just before we let you go, we know what Sebastian Giovinco is all about. We believe, again, that he will be in the race for MVP. This guy, I believe, is on a mission. He's focused to try to get this team to an MLS Cup final and maybe win it all. But myself, I have been critical from the day one that Josie Altidore kicked off in 2016 with TFC. About 3, 4, 5 games in, I started to finally see that he has turned his game around. And I'll give him credit. I've said this openly. I've said it time and time again. Good for him, because to me, a healthy Josie Altidore is so important for this squad. Talk about Josie Altidore and one other guy, Justin Morrow, who I believe should get some real serious look from Jurgen Klinsmann and Team USA.
I mean, well, we'll start with Morrow first. If he doesn't get a look from Jurgen Klinsmann, maybe he should get a look from Ireland, because from what I understand, he has Irish citizenship and could represent them as well. So as an Irish American, I wouldn't hate that. But as for Josie, I do think that this is the best I've ever seen him play overall. Not just the goal scoring, which he was phenomenal when he played in Holland. I think he had 30 goals in a season, which is pretty great. But his ability to link play, to take a beating, to do the unselfish dirty work off the ball that opens space for guys around him. I mean, look, we all remember the goal that the game winner, and the work that he did on the second goal as well. But if you look back in the first half, the best chance was Giovinco in alone on goal after a beautiful layoff from Josie Altidore. That's what he's bringing game after game after game. And I watch it and I love it, and like every time out, I'm just holding my breath, keeping my fingers crossed that that hamstring stays healthy. Because when he's playing like this, there's not a better forward in MLS.
Matthew, you're a class act for making time. I've followed you for the longest time. God bless you for giving the coverage to MLS like you have, because there's not too many like yourself, myself, and others out there that care about MLS and enjoyed, and too many out there taking shots at the league. You and I enjoyed. So again, thank you so much. As we let you go, where can people follow you, and what are you working on right now that people can enjoy as well?
You can follow me at MLS Analyst on Twitter, and I write the Armchair Analyst column on MLSsoccer.com. Also on Extra Time Radio, the podcast on MLSsoccer.com. What I'm working on right now is a bottle of red wine, because I got at least 36 hours off, so I'm going to try not to think about soccer for a little bit, maybe take a long nap, and just enjoy the start of November.